What up, world? It's your boy E letting you know we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. That's right, catch us Wednesdays on Visionaries Global Media.
Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering with E studios, letting you know that we are now proud members of the Visionaries Global Media family. Catch us Wednesdays and sometimes some other random days. And check out some of the other shows too. Band from Ringside, led by Jason B. Good Cop, Bad Cop with Graham, Matt, and Ryan. And our favorite pod, ROH Revelry with Will and High Five Tom every Saturday. What up, High Fivers? It's your boy Eric Freeds telling you to tune in to ROH Revelry with Tom and Will every Saturday. This week's episode of Nattering with E is brought to you by Century Gloves, your world leader in martial arts. Need gloves made for speed bag, heavy bag, and fitness training? Century Gloves has been helping people like you and I get into shape since 1976. With genuine leather for maximum durability, finger-specific dexterity, and curved cushioning to reduce hand fatigue, Century Gloves will help provide you with the pound-shedding workout you've always dreamed of. Stickers, get your stickers. That's right, folks. Nattering with E now has stickers of the Nattering with E logo, and soon we will have some other exciting and fun stuff for everybody to have. Thanks again for listening to us as always, and get your stickers. DM us on the Nattering with E Instagram page or E_Freeds' Twitter page. This is Nattering with E at the movies.
Hey Toronto, we're grabbing a beer with Jody Threat. You want to come? You know that WWE is coming into town for Money in the Bank, so Love Wrestling is coming for Money in the Drank Pub Crawl. Hop on the bus with us as we grab drinks from several establishments, party with Jody Threat and the Love Wrestling team, and get dropped off at Scotiabank Arena in time for WWE Money in the Bank. Love Wrestling's Money in the Drank Pub Crawl takes place on Saturday, July 6th. For tickets and info, visit tixr.com/lovewrestling.
This is Nattering with E with Eric Friedlander. What up, world? It's your boy E coming at you from the Nattering with E studios. Here today flying solo, and before we start, I just wanted to thank our sponsors, Visionaries Global Media. We're a proud member of that family. And also, as you just heard, Love Wrestling. That's right, Love Wrestling out in Alberta. They're not actually a sponsor, but we collaborated with Zach from that company for them to promote what's called the Love Wrestling Pub Crawl. It's coming to you the weekend of July 5th to 7th, which is when WWE is going to be in town in Toronto for Money in the Bank. And that's right, TNA's own Jody Threat, who also has a beer from Shackland's Reinhard Brewing. Reinhard Brewing is going to be the special guest of the pub crawl. So that's right. You can drink with Jody Threat. You can drink with the gang from Love Wrestling. That includes two of our past guests on Nattering with E, Pluggo and Grainmaker, Blair. So as you may recall from those episodes, Pluggo talked about his love of wrestling along with the Chicago Cubs and how he and Blair both agreed that they would throw out the man, the myth, the legend, JPJ from JPJ Loves Gaming, and Between Two Beards. They would throw him out of a Royal Rumble. Anyway, so it's been a bit. Last time I was here, we were with our good friend, our new friend and good friend, Miss Momo Jones. She's our movie expert pretty much. I met her through Mike Peterson, who you've heard on the pod as well. We were working on Mike's podcast called In Catering with Mike Peterson. We covered both nights back in March of WrestleMania, nights one and two. So got to hang out with Mike, Momo, and our other friend Plague. Don't know Plague's real name, but he just goes by Plague. I'm sure he does not have any plagues. And yeah, it was a blast doing those two nights. We also got to meet Rob Wilkins briefly, who, if you've heard me talk about um, coexisting with Rob and Maggie, that is Rob from Coexisting. Great, great dude. We've discussed previously about he and Maggie coming on the pod at some point. I know if you follow me on Twitter, I've been talking about taking the pod in a different direction in terms of less wrestling, more history talk, as history was what I majored in university. However, I'd be crazy not to talk wrestling. Like I love wrestling way, way, way too much not to talk about it. So what I think I'm gonna start doing is I got to do way more solo pods basically because um, just getting a co-host consistently has been difficult. Um, SJ, as you know, has always been um, able to do 18 of them. Brendan, I think, did 10 of the episodes. And we've had like Jordan on a couple times as well. But I mean, just getting one set co-host would be ideal for someone who does this regularly. However, I tend to have the most time out of anybody that I know. So, in saying that, it makes more sense for me to do these like solo projects or have people come on for interviews. Shout out to Pretty Ricky and my mom and a couple other people who've gladly come on to the pod and talked for an episode. Oh, by the way, if you're listening to Nattering with Me in order, you might say, Eric, why is there no episode 52 and no episode 55? The reason why I mentioned that is because we had those episodes, but unfortunately, due to some behind the scenes stuff, we had to take them down for the guest on those comfort level. Totally fine. We'll just be making up those episodes. So it'll read kind of funny, but like episode 60, 61 will technically be um 58, 59, and then like 58, 59 will push everything back. So we will have a 52 and 55. It'll just be uh kind of confusing on how it reads in the notes and stuff. So anyways, yeah, that's that's basically all the housekeeping I wanted to mention. And so the reason I'm here today after 10 days off, which honestly is ridiculous, like I think ideally I would want to put these pods out realistically once a week, so for a month, but it's me. I could do them like every single day. So what I've kind of been thinking about with the War on Vietnam through music, 1955 to 1975 project, is to do all of those as like one big lump sum project. So meaning to say when that's finally ready to go, it's still in the work in progress. When that's finally ready to go, uh called a random Sunday, but you're gonna have literally all 10 episodes of the history of the war in Vietnam through music, 1955 to 1975, all come out on the same day. And then what I might do is I'll sit on those for I'll sit out for a bit so that people can absorb those. And then I'll have some other stuff cooking, but like I won't release it till maybe the month after, but it'll and then I'll start up again with the 4 month. Essentially, the idea behind that is that I don't over saturate whoever listens, who and whoever you are, I completely appreciate it. So my idea as well with the war on Vietnam through music is to look at each individual year. Now, if I'm doing 10 episodes, what I might do is a two-part series. So 10 will be the first 10 years from 1955 to 65. and then or 1955 to 64. And then what I'll do is the second half will be 65 to 75. So 11 episodes will be the second half. And I'll be looking through it. Hopefully I'll be getting a couple people to come on to discuss that specific year. So like 1964 in um Vietnam and what was going on then, and then what music was going on then. As you might know from my talks with Bauerhausen, I'm addicted to music, so we'll be doing some long form stuff, he and I, but I'll also be doing some individual discography episodes where, so the reason I bring that up in relation to the War in Vietnam project is that there's a bunch of bands from that time that I don't want to talk just one song about them. I want to talk like go in depth on them specifically, but I don't want it to take away from the War in Vietnam. So, for instance, the Animals have a song called The House of the Rising Sun, which, if you listen to classic rock, you've heard that song many times, and it talks about how the war in Vietnam, it's a bit of a protest song, but it's also talking about various parts of the war in Vietnam. And so I talk about that specific song within when that song came out. So I think it was 1960 or 61. But then I also want to do like an entire discography episode of the Animals. So I'd do a background on the Animals, I'd talk about their early work, their stuff in the war era, and then what came afterwards. Another band that I really want to talk about is Creedence Clearwater Revival. I love that band. Uh, it's great music to work out to. It's great music to walk to. It's great music in general. And so they also contributed to some of the music in the 60s for the war in Vietnam. And with that being said, I would do the same thing about one song for them or one or two songs during the 60s and then talk about the entire discography on a separate episode. Another thing too that I should announce is that SJ is no longer going to be doing the podcasts. She may appear every once in a while, but she's decided that she does not want to continue doing these as regularly. We hope she comes back, but totally no pressure on our end in terms of having her back. It's always an open door. Same with her nephew Sean, who's been on a couple times. Open door for him too. Really, if you want to get a hold of me, as you've heard in our commercials, if you want to come on the pod and talk, you know where to find me. I'm usually here at Nattering with E on the Instagram page, and the Twitter is Eric Freeds. It's not E_Freeds anymore. It's Eric Freeds, all one word. ERICFREEDS, all one word. You can find me there on Twitter. Uh, Nattering with E, I'll reignite on Instagram at some point, but right now I shut that down and I shut down Easy Doodles. I've just been uh speaking of personal stuff, I've been going through some stuff myself, and I found I was getting a little burned out from trying to promote the pod and hope that people would come on. So I've been looking into some stuff, some apps called Co-Scheduler, and essentially what it is that you pre-plan when your episodes come out, and then it'll auto promote it for you, as opposed to you doing uh, all the promotion every week, for instance. So, um, one of the things that I've done to relax in the last like 10 days and take a break from social media is I went out to Niagara Falls. I actually met SJ. We met in the real life. She's awesome. As you can tell from the podcast, she lives up to the amazing hype that I always give her, in that she's absolutely fantastic. Great person. Her husband Doug is awesome too. And so we decided months ago that we were going to go to a Comic Con together. I had never been to Comic Con. And so this past weekend, we went out to the Niagara Comic Con, basically located in Niagara Falls, Ontario, just on the border with Buffalo. We went and saw some of our favorite celebrities. And let me tell you, as a comic book nerd who's been fighting his nerdom for, geez, probably 30 of the 36 years I've been alive, um, going to Comic-Con was amazing, but I did not stay long enough. Only ended up staying about 2.5 hours. And to be honest with you, going out of town to go to a Comic Con or any convention of that sort, you gotta go for like the whole day. But I didn't want to put pressure on my pal who actually came with me, so we went off of like we decided not to be there as long as maybe I had hoped. I think next time I go to a Comic Con, which SJ even said to me when I said to her, this is amazing. She said, that's the thing. Once you go to one Comic Con, you got to go to all of them. And so I'm gonna try and go to more. I may go by myself because if I go by myself to these things, I know for sure I'm going to buy a ton of comic books. I might have to start renting out a warehouse so that I can keep all my comic books and my video games and all my hobbies all in one spot. The other thing too is as I record this on June the 11th, we got the sad news about um the Comictron guy. Let me get the exact name for you. But basically, there was a YouTube channel where this fellow uh, created did comic books as his main topic. He would discuss various themes about various issues, such as the Injustice or Batman or DC or Marvel. And unfortunately, he passed away suddenly today at 40 years old. So thoughts and condolences with him and his family. And we basically, I never knew the guy, and I literally just discovered his channel today based on a article with Men's Health of all things. I guess they're in the know, and it made me realize, life's too short to wait around for people, so you got to do what you want to do. So his actual YouTube channel is called Comicstorian, where he lists where this fellow would look into um various comic books and do a deep dive of all of them. So in that regard, my plan is based on the comic books that I bought today, I will do deep dives on them as well. So some of the comic books that I bought were uh Shang-Chi, which I didn't realize was actually based on a comic book and not a TV show. Like not the other way around. Like I thought maybe it was the other way around where the TV show came out first and the comic book was written. Uh so I got the first three volumes of that. Then I got Green Lantern for a couple. And then I also got another um comic book called Batman vs. Robin. So I'm kind of interested to see how that goes with how Batman and Robin essentially did not become essentially turned on each other is how it sounds. So yeah, I'm looking forward to doing that as well. I'm just trying to find as I speak here and sort of ramble, I'm trying to find what the fellow who ran Comicstorian's actual first name was. Copy. So, another idea that I've had too is, as you know from the last time that I spoke to everybody, Ben Potter is the fellow's name, by the way. Ben Potter was the guy who did Comicstorian. It says that he died in an unfortunate accident at the age of 40. They won't release further details, but it doesn't sound like it was health related or knock on wood, suicide. It doesn't sound like either of those things. It sounds like maybe something else tragically happened, and rest in peace, Mr. Ben Potter. I wish that I had known about your channel prior to your death, so maybe we could have collaborated at some point. But in your honor, sir, as I just said, I will start reviewing my own comic books and go through there. So, one of the other things that I'm really looking forward to doing is talking about um movies. So, as you remember from previous, I don't want to do this, so change it to Google default. Sorry, default browser. Sorry, as I talk here, I'm trying to fix my computer because I haven't been on in a while. That's the other thing too that I find is that as I'm rambling here a little bit, but I find that if I don't do the podcast, I'm literally not on my computer. So having to reset everything every single time is quite a pain in the butt. But hey, what can you do? What can you do? Also, I think my Google Chrome updated on the last update, and I did not know that. So here we go. But anyways, what I was trying to say is this, is that I had an absolute blast with Momo doing the recaps of not one, not two, but three Planet of the Apes movies, the 2011 to 2017. You could check us on the last episode. It was an absolute pleasure. One of the complaints I actually got about that was that it was not long enough, which is interesting because I've had people tell me for the last year or so as I've been doing these podcasts, maybe cut it from 90 minutes or maybe cut it from 45 down to 30. But the thing is that sometimes the topic is a life of its own and it takes on multiple hours or then I'm just editing it. But the reason I bring this up is because after editing and putting in all the commercials and all that fun stuff, I realized that the episode Momo and I did was 90 minutes. So to have people say that basically the length of what I believe should be the length of a movie is not long enough made me think, you know what? I want to do more of these things. So what I've been doing in my time away from the podcast is watching various superhero movies and watching TV shows. Um, One thing that I've been watching is I'm going back and trying to find out who the best Spider-Man is based on the movies. So I've been watching I watched the first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire. I'm gonna watch the next two in the series. Then I'm gonna move on to Andrew Garfield, I think the guy's name was. And then I'll move on to, of course, the more recent ones with Tom Hardy, uh, with Tom Holland as the. Oh no! I'm screwing this up. Oh man, uh, let me look this up. Spider-Man actors. Yeah, Tom Holland. I had that right. Tom Holland was the right one. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Jake Johnson. Actually, crazy story for you. So on the weekend, June 7th to 9th, was the Niagara Comic Con, right? One of the people who was there was Shamik Moore. Who's that? He is the voice actor behind Miles Morales, aka Spider-Man from Into the Spider-Verse. That's right. Got to meet him. I tried to get a picture with him, but unfortunately, it was out of my price range. However, he seemed like nice enough. Like I think he was quite shy with like whoever knew him or didn't know him because you really have to be a fan of these movies to literally watch everything Spider-Man, so live action or through animation. So knowing who he was in that regard was kind of cool. But yeah, nice guy. Definitely a nice guy. I would definitely attempt to include, I guess, Miles Morales into this too. But I think for the purposes of this first sort of idea with Spider-Man, I'm gonna first watch all the Tobey Maguire movies, then watch all the Andrew Garfield, then watch all the Tom Holland movies because they've each made three. So once all those movies have been watched, because I'm gonna binge them over the next week or so, I'll do an episode where I'm recapping the movies, but I'm also comparing to see who had the best of all these movies. So, in terms of highest grossing, in terms of popularity, in terms of things like that. Um, then the other thing is that my plan for TV shows is I used to love Criminal Minds back in the day, and so I've been watching Criminal Minds Evolution. The first season is technically season 16 in the series, so I've been watching that, and say it's dark as heck, same as the series, same as the original series. Would be putting it mildly. It might actually make the original series look innocent. So I plan to finish that off, and then Mom might come back on so that we can discuss the first season, and then we're gonna binge the second season because I've been watching it with her. So that should be a blast. Uh, Also, the guy's name was Shamik Moore, who played Miles Morales. Uh, okay, so before I wrap up, I have a few things on the sports front I want to say, and also on working out. Okay, so on the workout front, what I'd like to say is this, is that I used to love pre-pandemic. I loved going to the gym from like the time I was 18 to about call it 30, 31 before the pandemic happened. Absolutely loved it. But I was always sore as heck. And similar to the podcast, I had way too much time on my hands, so I'd always be at the gym, but I also love to eat. So I wouldn't take the diet that seriously. I realize now at like 36 that the one thing that they really took away from me during the pandemic was the gym, in that I just felt so obligated going and like it was part of my day, things like that. When I started going back in December 2023, I bought a 1 year gym membership at just like a cheapo gym here in Toronto. And honestly, at first I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. Like I'll get back into it and it'll like click with me right away. I don't know if you heard me snapping my fingers, but I snapped my fingers and yeah, I thought it was going to be amazing. To say it's been a struggle since December has been putting it mildly. There's been times where I've gone like once every 3 weeks, once a month, once every 2 weeks. And then there's other times where randomly I'll go like three, 4 times a week. So now that I don't know, I've come to realize like I've recently changed s- some stuff in the real life, and which would allow me to have more time to go to the gym. And so I'm gonna try and like make a schedule so that I go there at least every day. I may not do cardio every day. I may just do a weight or I may just do stretching, but I'll be there. I'm gonna try and go regular, like every day. I'm gonna try and get up at like 7 and then go at 7:45. So the reason I mentioned this on the pod is because I feel like if I start giving workout updates or step updates on the pod, I'll be more consistent with both because I'll want to update whoever's listening, and I'll just want to do it for myself and do it for even if it's just one listener who's out there who's listening and is like, I wonder how he's doing on his workouts. Um, in terms of so like during COVID, I definitely put on way too much weight. Like I used to be in the 180s and now I'm two in the 200s. So I'm trying to come down from that. And I really feel like whoever's out here listening, I hope that you're on the journey with me because uh doing it alone, much like the podcast, I find has been hard. But at the same time, I mean, I can do it. I realize that I can do it. I do have the time to do it. So yeah. But my goal is pretty much like get under 200 pounds and then just figure it out from there. So again, I love food so friggin' much, but I realized that like I've been trying to eat way healthier and not have as many snack days. So I'm gonna try to keep getting into that habit of eating better, do more cooking, things like that. Um, in terms of sports, so all my teams are basically out right now. Cincinnati, the new season hasn't started. West Ham, the season just ended back in end of May, and the Leafs went out in round one again for NHL. One thing I found though with hockey at least is that um, I want to watch more of the league. Like I watch the rest of the playoffs, and I don't want to be as narrow-minded about hockey. Like, how does this only affect Leafs? How does this only affect how my team can win the cup or my team specifically? I want to just like enjoy the entire league because I've realized that like when you're so emotionally invested in your specific team, it gets very tiring and it gets very like if you take it too personally, I guess it's a little too much and people say like, "Oh, hey, you got to reorganize your priorities and stuff." But I realized that like if I gave the rest of the league a chance in terms of just my viewership and just how I find it intriguing, then it'll give me more content to talk about and even write about. So I've been really like watching the rest of the playoffs and so forth. I mean, right now we're in the finals, so it's Florida versus Edmonton, and Florida has become like quietly just this force. I myself do not like their coach, Paul Maurice, but my reasoning is like different from other people's. Like, I mean, people at Edmonton could not like him because maybe he's smug or arrogant, right? My issue with Paul Maurice is that he coached the Leafs back in 07, 08, and I guess I'm holding a bit of a grudge because any chance he has ever gotten at any job he's had since the Leafs, he always bashes the Leafs or always claims special treatment for the Leafs, things like that. If the Leafs are having special treatment, how come they can't get out of the first round? How come they're not a dynasty winning the cup? That's all I ask. Meanwhile, for Edmonton, I'm actually like happy that they got there for two reasons. One, I myself, this may sound xenophobic and it's not meant to be, but the last 30, 32 years, it's always been an American team winning. And I mean, I get it because there's 32 teams in the league, but only seven are from Canada. So the odds of an American team winning are quite high. But for having Edmonton make the final is just it means more to me than when Montreal made the final against Tampa Bay in the bubble year because like A, it was a shortened season that year, and B, Edmonton, you could tell, is actually a good team that like has gone through adversity. They couldn't get out of the first round forever. They've gone on runs before where they've come up just short. Montreal that year, they just got hot at the right time in the playoffs, and if it was over a full season, like 82 games, and then the playoffs, they would not have made it. So, and also, as I mentioned, I'm too much of a Leaf fan, so it goes back to me being a little bit bitter about that. About the Leafs blowing a 3-1 lead. The With Edmonton, the thing that I like is that Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have been there for almost a decade now, which is crazy to think about. So it's not like they've only made the playoffs the last couple of years and now they're finally breaking through. It's literally they've paid their dues, similar to Florida. Florida has paid its dues. I'll give them that. And now that they've paid their dues, they're finally able to break through to the Stanley Cup. However, uh, these first two games, I just it's been a weird start to the Stanley Cup finals. The first game, Florida won 3-0. Also Florida has home ice because they have the better record than um Edmonton during the regular season. Like I think if memory serves, Florida won the Atlantic Division and was like the second or first place team, and then in the whole league, and then Vancouver won the Pacific. So because and Edmonton was second in the Pacific, and I think like or third overall in the West. Anyways, because of that, Florida has home ice advantage in the throughout the entire playoffs. So in the first game, Edmonton actually came out flying, and you thought, you know what, like this goalie has to stand on his head because they're literally gonna win this game like 7 or 8 to nothing. Instead, the goalie literally stood on his head, and they had plenty of chances to score. They just could not beat Bobrovsky. He played out of his mind. He played like if Marty Brodeur and Patrick Waugh and Glenn Hall had like a love child, that's how good Sergei Bobrovsky played in game one. So unfortunately for that, while he was playing good, Stuart Skinner, the goalie for Edmonton, gave up a goal on the first shot of the game, goal on the first shot of the second period, and then they pulled the goalie to try and get something back, but unfortunately gave up the third goal. So they lost that 3-0. Game two. Game two was a tale of two games in the regard. It played last night. Florida won again 4-1. However, first two periods it's pretty deadlocked. Like the Bobrovsky was standing tall, Edmonton was getting chances. There was a bit of rough stuff. Darnell Nurse left for the game because he got injured by one of the Florida players. Then Warren Fogle got ejected for a knee on knee, which honestly should have been a tripping. Um, Barkov left because Draisaitl literally cross-checked him in the mouth the same way that Matthews has cross-checked guys before for the Leafs, and how Kadri has cross-checked guys before for different teams over the years. Anyways, they didn't give, and then there was a couple of like uh plays where the refs, after calling everything throughout the game, literally decided to put their whistles away and not call anything. Look, I know that the refs have a hard job. I know that the argument of refs should do a press conference is something fans have cried for and media have cried for, but it'll never happen because if you let the media question the officiating, you'll never be able to trust those officials again in the playoffs or in any game, really. You'll never be able to trust them again if they're called out for their actions. That's not to say it's right or wrong, but that's just the way that the games are played, is that a ref or a linesman or an umpire or an official of any kind can affect the game. They say it's crazy, but I mean, in basketball, you had that Tim Donaghy guy who was back in the early to mid 2000s who was rigging games to pay off gambling debts. That stuff does happen. I'm not saying this time that it's necessarily happened, but it's just you can't get a read. Sometimes in games you can get a read on the refs. And what I mean by that is that if Florida does something that they know the officials will be more lenient on, then Edmonton won't necessarily get the calls that they're looking for, and vice versa. It's an age-old argument that's happened forever. To me, Edmonton let Florida into their heads, which was a big red flag for me because game one, they played really, really well. And you thought, you know what, they just got goalied. But as long as they come back in game two with that same effort, they should be able to get something out of this game. By the middle of the second period, when all the shenanigans started happening, you could tell that like uh Florida had got in their heads. And the only good thing for Edmonton, the saving grace, despite losing 4-1, because they took so many dumb penalties in the third that eventually their penalty kill, which had gone 38 for 38, literally collapsed because it took too many penalties. And then Evan Rodriguez scored a couple goals, and Mikko Mikola also scored a goal. And I forget who got the fourth one. Anyways, long story short, long story longer. they took all these penalties and they fell apart in the third period. Now Edmonton is down 2-0 going into Thursday's game. Three, they have to show not only themselves, no, sorry, not only everybody, but themselves too, that the third period was just them being careless and that they can battle back. Because I think the real team for Edmonton was the team that played game one plus periods one and two of game two. The third period was just a gong show, and I don't think that's them really. That's not their game at all. So on Thursday, I think they're going to come out flying. They're going to try and play hard, and they're just going to play well enough that they can. I mean, all they got to do is take it one game at a time. That's literally what it is. If you start thinking like, "Oh my God, I got to win four in a row," you're not going to win four in a row. Um, so yeah, that it's made for a very compelling series, to be honest with you. It's fascinating because the narrative here is we want to see McDavid, who's considered the best player of the world, finally win a cup, breakthrough, finally win a cup. Meanwhile, in the States, it's can Florida get over the the monkey, push past the monkey on their shoulder. 2 years ago, best record of the league, um, barely make it out of the first round, then get smoked by Tampa Bay. Last year, very, very good season. Came in as a number four seed, beat the top ranked Boston Bruins, beat the Leafs handily, beat Carolina, then got smoked by Vegas. This year, it's like, okay, you had your chances before, but enough's enough. Like you've got to try and push on and win this cup. Can you do it in four? That would be amazing. But as long as you win the cup at the end of the day, this group can stay together. I know Sam Reinhart's going to be a UFA, and I know that they're so good that they wouldn't get rid of most of the team. But like, if you lose back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, I mean, something's got to change, no? So it's very captivating and compelling in that regard. Meanwhile, in the NBA, I really haven't been watching, but I want to get back into the NBA. Like I used to be a big Clippers fan before Kawhi joined the team, partially because they were always an underdog, and then they revamped a bit, but then they would lose, unfortunately, in the playoffs. They'd never been past the second round, and now they're just honestly they're a mess. Like they're going to lose Paul George in the free agency after giving up like 8,000 picks to get him. Like they paid way, way, way too much for that guy for what he gives them, for what he gave them, sorry. So hopefully the Clippers next year could be good. The other thing too is that like I live on the East Coast, right? So looking for an East Coast team, you'd think to yourself, hey, pick the Raps like they won a couple years ago. Can't do it. I've never been a Raptors fan. I used to watch them just so I could schmooze with pals at the time, but honestly, just not a fan of them. I just got to find someone else to root for from the get-go. Like maybe I'll find a new team. But if anyone listening to this has a suggestion for who I should root for, I'm all ears. Uh, Going back to West Ham. So West Ham got rid of David Moyes, and now they have a guy named Julian Lopetegui. Uh, as you can tell from me struggling, this is going to be a fun year to try and pronounce his last name. So far, it seems like what he wants to do is have a youth movement at the club. So I'm hoping, praying, pleading that whoever he brings in actually plays. Because one thing with boys is that you can always tell who the board or the director of player ops wanted, and then who Moyes wanted. And Moyes only played his guys, which I get like the coach has to be comfortable, but at the same time, like you're running your guys into the ground, and your flat out refusal to play the other guys who are also on the team is just ridiculous. So all I'm literally looking for this season is for Lopetegui to get the most out of the team, play the bench, actually use the subs, and try and see how they can do. That's all I'm asking for. Whether it's his picks or whether it's the board's picks, just integrate everybody into the team. Make sure everyone can play. This year, after a bunch of years in Europe for extra competitions, all we have is regular season and the FA and the League Cups. That's enough time. That's enough games to integrate everybody in. Also, what I've heard is that Lopetegui wants to have all of his. He's supposed to take a job by July 1. However, behind the scenes, he's basically pointed out like he gave West Ham his wish list of players, and they're trying to get them before he meets with the full team on July 20th. So I like that too, in regards to the fact that he may have the team ready to go by the beginning of the season. That's the one thing that always bothered me about Moyes, besides his lack of subs, is that he always saved his transfer business till like the final day or the final week of the season. I mean, of the transfer window, and be like, "Hey, we tried." Like, you didn't try. Why are you waiting for so long? So at least this guy, Lopetegui, wants to do his business fast. Will it help? Who knows? But I would rather he get his guys in when the transfer window opens on July 1, versus waiting till August 31st when the transfer window closes. Anyways, I also wanted to say before we get out of here that I took a poll a couple weeks, like maybe a month ago on Twitter about what we would call the fans of Nattering with E. And the Natterers was one and the E's was the other. So I'm thinking like the E's might be the way to go just because it's me, Eric. Nattering, I think people get confused by like I literally told people about my podcast and they were like, what does nattering even mean? Nattering means talking, chatting with E. And with that, if you're an E, I hope people are chatting with you. Stay frigid, stay great, and we'll be back next week. See ya.